Okay. Welcome in, everybody. I'm going to be getting started in just a minute, but I'm going to let people start joining the live stream before we officially start. So in the meantime, if you are just joining us, I'd love to hear where you're coming from. If you want to, you could tell us where you're coming from in the chat section. I'd love to see where people are tuning in from. Michelle from North Carolina, hello. And Lauren from Atlanta. Fantastic. All right. Oh, now we're starting to stream in here. Okay. Shy Maid from Norway. Palo Alto. Let's see. It's at the middle of the night there. That is not sure where you're coming from, but let's see here. Portugal, Las Vegas, and from Chile. Welcome. Let's see here. Irene from Greece. And Donna from New Jersey. And we had Irene from Greece. Where was it? I had someone coming from Chicago. Lana, it looks like. Very cool. Scranton, Pennsylvania, and Holland. Very cool, Anna. Eves from Cape Town. Tanya from Jacksonville. It's so cool to see all of you coming in from so many different places. We're going to wait until we get to hopefully a little bit closer to like maybe 100 people. Once we do, I'll start a countdown, as you guys know who have joined me in live stream before, and then I'll get started. We're going to be doing live readings and Q&A today, and see where we go from there. Candace is coming from Long Beach, California, and let's see, Charpy the Hedgehog from Manchester, and David from New Jersey. Welcome in, David. Stephen from San Francisco. Right on. Cassidy from New York City. All right, very cool. Once we get started with the live stream, I'll be telling you guys how you can join me live in the studio for a reading today if you are interested in receiving one. So I'll be giving you guys instructions on that. In the meantime, if you guys have any questions about astrology, any questions whatsoever, if there's something you want to know about me as a content creator, or about Nightlight, or about the school, our programs, about astrology, a question about something theoretical in astrology or philosophical, you can put questions into the chat box and I'll be answering those. And then I'll also be calling some people into the studio for some live readings. All right. KK Smith from Arizona. Awesome. And let's see here. There were some that I missed. There was some interesting foreign country. I think we had someone from Portugal earlier. Can't remember if I mentioned them or not. That was interesting. Michelle, it was so lovely to meet you and your wife at the Good Medicine Confluence. Oh, yeah. Totally. And I off the top of my head, like I'm Michelle, I can't remember I wish I could remember your face. And then I would be like, hi, Michelle. But yeah, I mean, it was really cool meeting a lot of people outside of getting altitude sickness and having to be taken down the mountain. Like every single day we went, I had to be taken back down the mountain because I just was not my body was not handling it very well. And we get back down to Colorado Springs and like I could breathe again. That was a roller coaster ride. But yeah, it was nice to meet you too. I wish I could remember which of the many people we met you are. I'm sorry. Let's see. Tanya says, when does your next year 3 class begin? Year 3 class starts in January. It's coming up. Need-based tuition is obviously open for enrollment right now. You can enroll at the normal cost with a big sale discount through the Kickstarter. I'll be telling you more about the Kickstarter, as you guys know, in a minute. But How can I use my chart to find a spiritual practice that makes sense to me? That's a great question. And I'll come back. I'll try to come back to that one once we get started officially. There's so many good questions starting to come in here. So yeah, let's see here. Andrea says, we'll be in the Twin Cities for the holidays. Would love meetup. Oh, you know what? Like every year at the holiday time, I get like dozens of emails from people who are like, I'm going to be in the Twin Cities. Can I meet up? And I'm always like, unfortunately, no, because I've like there's two things. Like usually my calendar is stacked with like, friends and family stuff, but then it's also like one of my busiest times of year with the culmination of the Kickstarter. So I wish that could happen, but unfortunately it won't. But enjoy your time in the Twin Cities. Let's see. Sharpie says, I hope you get full funding. You really deserve it, Adam. Thank you. We hope that we do too. We have a long ways to go, but I'm holding out faith that we can rally the support in the last 12 days here. Anyway, we are close to 100 people now, so I'm going to do a little countdown, and then we'll get started. All right. Well, officially welcome in, everybody. This is Adam Ellenboss from Nightlight Astrology. I'm going live today as a way of supporting our annual Kickstarter campaign, promoting that the best we can with just about 12 days left to go, and also taking time to say thank you to all of you for being such an amazing audience by trying to answer your questions if you've got them, and also doing some readings for you guys. So before we get started, I'm going to answer questions first, and then I'll do some readings, answer some questions, do some readings, and we'll go back and forth like that. This is a good way to learn more about charts, to learn more about astrology. So I hope that you guys will find this useful. If you would like to join me for a reading in the studio today, I want you to use the email address grabbed@nightlightastrology.com. This is the address that we use for storytelling purposes when people share their stories with us for those storytelling episodes that I do. If you'd like to join me live in the studio today for a reading, send me an email, grabbed@nightlightastrology.com. In that email, please include your full name and your birth data. That is time, date, and location of birth. I will send a link to you in response. You click on that link and you'll be in the studio waiting in kind of like a green room, and then I'll call you on when it's your turn. It is very possible that I'll call more people into the room than I will have a chance to get to. So please don't be offended if I can't get to everyone. But if you would like to join for a reading, have a little mini reading of your biggest transit, say of the year ahead, you can email grabbed@nightlightastrology.com, and in the email, put your name and birth data. And I will be sending out some links shortly. Now, let me just, I'm going to move over so I can see the emails as they are coming in. And here we go. So before, as we are waiting for people to email in and eventually join us in the studio, the email address, by the way, is on the screen right now. So you should be able to just see it on the screen. It's grabbed@nightlightastrology.com. All right. So some of the questions that you guys have that I'm going to get to there's a lot of really good questions. If you have a question, by the way, don't be shy to put it in the chat again, since the comments stream so quickly that sometimes I can't see the questions. But before I get into anything, I want to remind all of you guys of, kind of why I'm here and why I'm doing this, which is in support of our annual Kickstarter campaign. So the Kickstarter is the last 40 days of the year. This is our 10th annual Kickstarter campaign. And for the last 40 days of the year, what I do, rather than having a Patreon or a paywall or a subscription service, is I like to make all of my content free and completely accessible throughout the year. And then the last 40 days of the year, we fundraise, and we have a couple of different goals. Our major goal is to reach the support of 1,777 backers by New Year's Eve. Right now, we are at 712 backers. So that means we're just a little over 1,000 backers left to go, with 11 days left and counting. So that means we really need your support. You can find the link to the Kickstarter in a couple of different places. And if you have not yet donated, we would deeply appreciate your support. We're getting down to crunch time, so we really do need to just rally as much support as we can in these last days. The link to the Kickstarter campaign is going to be found in the live stream chat, and I'm going to put it in there right now. There it is. And also, you can find it if you go to the website. If you go over to our website, which is, excuse me, which is nightlightastrology.com, you're going to see a link that says 2024 Kickstarter campaign. And when you click on that, you'll also be taken over to the Kickstarter where you can pledge. When you pledge, you can pick up a variety of different rewards. The best rewards are our class passes. So you can come and study astrology in our programs. We have a first-year program called Ancient Astrology for the Modern Mystic. That's a one-year immersion into ancient Hellenistic astrology. A second-year course that builds off from the first-year course in developing ancient timing techniques and forecasting and prediction skills. And then our third-year class which is on counseling in astrology, as well as live readings and chart practice. So the third year is very hands-on. It's rooted in working with live people and counseling dynamics and chart practice. Those three programs form the bedrock of our school. And most people who seek professional certification will go through all three of those programs. However, many, many people take our programs just because this is your hobby, this is your passion, in the same way that I love playing and developing my skills with the guitar outside of my job as an astrologer. I'm not necessarily seeking to become a professional musician, but I love music and I love learning more about the guitar. So for many people, that's what this program is also like. And the program is designed to kind of meet you where you're at. First, second, and third year can be taken and are taken frequently by people who would consider themselves nothing more than, hobby astrologers for whom this is your spiritual practice or a big part of your spiritual life. So it really meets people where they're at. We also have a Roots and Spheres program that begins in January, which is our monthly moon circle. We meet before the new and full moons to discuss the astrology of the month ahead. And we also meet to work with different plant allies that are purposely paired with the energies of the moon cycle. That is a wonderful little moon circle community that meets. That program is also on sale through the Kickstarter. You could join us for the moon circle in January. More information about that program and all of our programs can also be found on the website, nightlightastrology.com. There's a masterclass series that begins in January where once every season we have a masterclass that meets 4 times for a total of about 10 hours and focuses on a specific advanced topic in ancient astrology. So lots of different programs that we offer. We hope you will consider them. The horary program is also listed in our curriculum. Horary astrology is a specific form of astrology, and that program always starts in June. When you pick up class passes through the Kickstarter, you can save 50% off at the most basic level. And when you bundle 2, 3, 4 programs together, the savings goes up significantly so that the price per program ends up being about 75% off the full price of the course. Because the Kickstarter is successful, I'm able to support my staff, myself, my family. This is part of how I earn my living, obviously. We pour a ton of time and energy into the production of the content on this channel 5 days a week, year round. There's a whole team. If you go to the short videos on YouTube, you can meet some of the team and staff behind Nightlight. You see me sitting here, and it's easy to think that I'm just banging the drum, for myself, but it's for an entire team and an entire school that offers affordable readings, affordable classes for people of all income demographics. And we also, in the new year, if we're successful, we'll be building an affordable reading service. Part of our mission is to make sure that astrology is affordable. And so the Kickstarter model is really rooted in the idea that if you value this free content, you'll give freely in return. And then we don't ever have to set up subscriptions, paywalls, and all of our services can be, broadly speaking, free. And all of our classes can be, broadly speaking, accessible to absolutely anyone who wants to study despite their financial situation. So anyway, it goes a long way when you support the Kickstarter to doing a lot of good things, and you support a team of people whose livelihood also is wrapped up in the success of the Kickstarter, including my own. So if you have not yet donated, we appreciate it. If you have, thank you from the bottom of my heart. I really do value the commitment that you make to this channel every year. All right. So, on that note, again, you can find the link to the Kickstarter right here. I'm going to put it into the chat one more time, and you can also find the link to the you can find a link to the Kickstarter campaign in again on the website nightlightastrology.com. So let's see here. That would be, let me just put that up on the screen again. Oh, it's up on the screen already. So if you go there, you can click on the link that'll take you over as well. All right, today I'm answering your questions and doing live readings. And remember, if you want to join me live in the studio for a reading, you can use the email address grabbed at nightlightastrology.com. Send your name and your birth data, time, date, location of birth, and we'll get you in for a reading. We have a few people in queue already, but oh my gosh, I'm a throwback for you. Jamie from CCYM. Yeah, oh my God. Jamie, if you're comfortable, what's your last name? I'm trying to. Okay, anyway, this is someone who was probably part of my youth group in like church growing up in the day. That is crazy. And if it's the Jamie that I'm thinking of, then like, hi, it's amazing to hear from you. I can't believe you're somehow here. This is incredible. Yeah. You said, are we friends on Instagram? If not, find me on Instagram and let's chat. I'd love to catch up and just hear how you've been doing. People from youth group back in the day were like huge, important part of my life. I can't even explain. I was really, really involved in youth group and in leadership of youth groups on the state level in the Methodist Church in Minnesota. And like, yeah, a ton of my really dear spiritual friends and like the kind of spiritual trajectory that I've been on in my life it really got started back then with yeah, just like the summer camps that we went to. If this is Jamie that I'm thinking it is, then we have like many years of doing church youth group stuff together. So anyway, that's really cool. It's random how we meet people along the path over and over again. All right. So questions about astrology. If you have them, please put them in and I'm going to roll up here and see what I've got. All right. Okay. Sorry, I have to scroll up to find your questions again. This is a great question. When you're doing a reading, how do you approach challenging aspects in someone's chart without hurting their feelings or scaring them? Well, yeah, that's a really significant challenge that most astrologers face. There's a passage in the introduction to William Lilly's famous text on horary astrology where he says, if you see something difficult in a chart, deliver their hard fate by degrees, which basically means don't scare someone in the way that you deliver a message. Let's say, for example, that Pluto is going to oppose someone's natal Venus. The most likely thing that's going to happen is that this person is going to go through a dramatic death and rebirth around love and relationships, among other topics that Venus might rule in the chart by virtue of house rulership. Venus topically rules love and romance and relationships in general. So Pluto opposing Venus can mean that someone is going to go through dramatic transformations around those topics, which some of which will likely, especially through an opposition, be painful. But ultimately, because you know as an astrologer, because your faith as an astrologer is that this is a divinely guided process that is leading someone through a kind of rebirth, and that ultimately they're going to feel better when it's over, right? It's really important that you emphasize that there's transformation coming around love, as opposed to saying, yeah, the person that you're in a relationship with, there's a high likelihood you guys are going to break up. First of all, you don't know that's going to happen. And second, it's important that a person be looking at events coming as something designed as an opportunity for them to grow deeper into the mystery of their own heart and soul and their connection with the divine than it is about some specific bad or good thing that's going to happen on the mundane level, which is really only a sort of byproduct of this deeper spiritual process that's taking place. So when William Lilly, or even ancient astrologers like Firmicus Maternus, a Roman astrologer who said similar things, or even Manilius, an early Roman poet who talked about the responsibility of the priests and priestesses of the stars, almost unanimously, they talk about this being something that should draw people into a deeper, trusting, heart-centered relationship with the intelligence behind astrology itself. And if we're not doing that in the way we describe transits, then we're not acting as an acolyte for the gods or for the divine intelligence, so to speak. So it's really, really important that we learn how to deliver even the most harrowing looking transits or natal placements with an aura of positivity. Not because we don't want the positivity to be promising positive events, but we want to be positive insofar as we believe that this process can be experienced as a positive thing for the soul. And that's the kind of optimism that we safeguard as astrologers. It's very, very important. So anyway, thank you for that great question, and I hope that helps. I'm going to go down and see what other questions you guys have. Just to confirm, Anna says, Pluto recently opposed my natal Venus and no breakup. Exactly. It's not always like, oh my God, this worst thing in the world happens either. It can be a harrowing transit, but it doesn't mean that something awful is going to happen. Oh, look, my dad's here. Hey, Dad, love you too. That's cool. All right, let's see here. Let's see. Any thoughts about Saturn transiting your North Node? Sure. There's a lot that can be said about Saturn on the North Node as a transit, and I hope that first of all, it has to be clear that the house position, the sign of the North Node of the Moon, aspects to the node, the position of the ruler, so many contextual factors can play a role in offering a more precise or nuanced delineation, right? So, just speaking generally, Saturn on the North Node. So in ancient Hellenistic astrology, the North Node associated with the point at which the moon crosses the ecliptic, moving northward toward the pole star. As the moon's latitude is rising across that line and it's heading upward toward the pole star, it was associated, as the moon was broadly associated with the realm of fortune, with a rise in fortune. Now, rise in fortune in this world for ancient Stoics, Platonists, Hermeticists was not a straightforward thing. A rise in fortune, for example, could mean that you get a big head, or it could mean that your tumor grows bigger, or anything that is representing inflation or amplification of themes that might on the surface look good but are more problematic morally or spiritually. So increase of fortune in the world, it oftentimes is associated with pleasure and satisfaction. We like when things grow and increase, like the crops for a farmer. That's a pretty good, nice thing to see grow. But there are things that grow and develop and increase or amplify or multiply or expand that are not always good. And so for this reason, the North Node was more broadly associated with gain for good or bad. Place Saturn with it, and you have the potential for the worst of Saturnian qualities to be amplified or to grow. So let's say, for example, you have a debilitated Saturn in a difficult house or something like that. The amplification experienced when Saturn goes over the North Node may be more destructive. It's like these difficult Saturnian qualities are put on steroids. On the other hand, Saturn going across the North Node and maybe, let's say, a more neutral or even more positive context, say a better dignity, a better house, etc., could mean that some of the best Saturnian virtues are amplified, such as maturity, stoic acceptance of hard realities, a willingness to work through things, discipline, maturity, seriousness, gravitas. All of those Saturnian qualities may be amplified in a much healthier or better way. And so the context is everything with the North Node and Saturn. On the other hand, you could also see that where the North Node, say in Indian astrology, is associated with desire, Rahu, the North Node, is associated with what compels us to move forward in life through our appetites and our desires. When Saturn crosses that, it's as though something is prohibiting us from being satiated, or something is prohibiting or restraining the ability to pursue our desires, or we're having to deal with some kind of authority saying no to the pursuit of our desires. For example, Saturn across the North Node will sometimes be the call for sobriety when someone can't stop themselves from drinking and they'll hit their rock bottom. But on the other hand, the North Node and Saturn together could mean that you're really hungry for something, but you want to develop something or you have an ambition, but Saturn is requiring great restraint, maturity, discipline, and focus to get there. So there's so many different archetypal meanings, and usually we can become most specific about what North Node and Saturn is saying by looking at the house placement, the sign, the ruler, aspects, dignity, etc. So I hope that gives you some good things to think about, and thanks so much for your question. In the meantime, Maybell says, hi from California. Took year one course last year. I'd like to understand nodal reversal. I have natal node at 22 Libra, 8th or 9th in whole sign house chart. Yeah, so first of all, thanks so much. I'm glad that you took the course. Hope you enjoyed it. Come back around maybe for year 2 or 3 sometime. We'd love to have you back. In terms of nodal reversals, when the nodes come back through the same signs, but they're in the opposite order, that means you're about halfway through the nodal cycle, which is total of 18 years. So it's about 9 years or so that we find ourselves in a flipped moment where your the south node will be over your north and the north node will be over your south. When that happens, you can think of it like a temporary redirection of the currents of nodal karma, where the north node typically represents the desires that take us into the world. They're like the drumbeat that's taking us into the heart of earthly existence. I desire, I crave people, places, things. I want to develop things. I want to achieve things. I have desires that are taking me into engagement with the world. That's the north node. When the south node comes over it, temporarily there'll be a period of time where we become almost a little bit disillusioned by, or a little bit more detached from that normal stream of desires. Whereas the things represented by the south node will become amplified, and there'll be more of an impulse to go in their direction, which is interesting because the south node usually, especially from the ancient standpoint, will be about detachment from worldly things and an interest in otherworldly things. So for example, when you have let's say the south node is in, let's say the south node is in Cancer. You may have a natural way in which you seek a withdrawal from the world through home and family. Like the world can be a stressful place, trying to make something out of yourself, make money, relationships, status, fame, power, mastery, development of knowledge, acquisition, all these things that take us into the world, desire for this or that or people or whatever. The south node usually represents the way in which we kind of go, it's a lot. Where can I go that takes me into moksha, or liberation from the world, which could be as simple as sleep, or as grand as enlightenment. But moksha is the impulse that human beings have to seek refuge or retreat from the world, like the hermit card in the tarot, either the picture of the Led Zeppelin cover with the hermit standing on the mountain. That's like retreat from the world. South node is like that for ancient astrologers. So, all of a sudden, the south node, rather than being a place of retreat from the world, becomes the place by means of which we seek to enter into it, which is a reversal of the normal order of things. That appears to come around in succession along with nodal returns as just almost like a way of helping us explore the duality of the nodes of the moon themselves. There's a way in Indian astrology and philosophy, for example, in which neither the intense pursuit of worldly ambitions nor some kind of intense pursuit of otherworldly ambitions are really the answer. In the same way, for example, that the Buddha goes first into extreme indulgence in the world, and then he goes to extreme renunciation of the world and kind of ping-pongs between the two. But what he finally learns is the middle path. That is neither some kind of extreme ascetic renunciation, nor is it some kind of extreme material indulgence. The flipping of the nodes seems to temper the quality of the nodes that may tempt us in either of those extreme directions. And it does so by reversing the way in which we think or experience engagement versus detachment from the world. So those are some kind of a way of thinking about the reversed order of the nodes. I hope it's helpful. All right. Well, on that note, I think we're going to invite a few people into the studio for readings. And so let me just see who I have in the queue here. Got so many people. I'm actually going to start sending the link to some people who are in the queue so that you can come and join. Let's see. Give me just a second here. All right. Da, da, da. So many people have sent them, so give me just a second here while I'm trying to do this. I'm trying to see if there's, it'd be nice to have at least one guy come on. Let's see here. It's hard to see some of the names. All right, I'm sending links to some of you who have submitted your information. Ah, a gentleman. Excellent. Let's see here. All right, I've sent quite a few responses to folks, so hopefully we'll have some people coming in. We'll see in the meantime as people are starting to join if I can find some more questions in here. Let's see. Thank you. Glad you enjoyed that. Thank you so much. Well, you know what? I'll pause here for a second to remind all of you that we are, I am here live today also as a way of trying to rally support for the annual Kickstarter campaign. We so appreciate your support. If you are able to pitch in and support the channel in the year ahead, I'm going to put the link in the live stream chat one more time. And if you have not already, please consider supporting us, this community, and our staff. All of us, we really appreciate it. And when you pledge, don't forget you can pick up a variety of really great rewards. So we thank you so much for everyone who's pitched in. We've gotten a bunch of backers since we started this live stream, so I really do thank you guys. Let's see. I am. Let's see. Okay. Okay. I'm thinking of starting a new business, but Saturn is currently in my second house till 2025. Can I still go for it, or would it be better to delay the starting till Saturn is in my third house? No, I mean, here's the thing is that Saturn in the second house is not it's not like, oh, I'm screwed if I try to do anything around money. Remember that Saturn was thought of as the gatekeeper between the new and the old, which is why when Jupiter and Saturn come together, just like the story between Kronos and Zeus, there is a theme of transition from one order, age, institution, operation, doctrine, teaching, and another. It's not that Saturn is representing something bad. It's that Saturn is like a threshold, the demarcation of a limit or boundary between one thing and the next. So when it's going through your second, in many ways, it will mark the end of an era and the beginning of another. Although the ending of an era can be associated with winter or themes like decline, poverty, scarcity, loss, constraint. Those are the themes of death that also accompany the birthing of something new. So quite frequently when Saturn goes through the 10th house, for example, people will experience the feeling of constraint or contraction within their career that is not necessarily enjoyable, but is also the contractions that are actually leading to new life and the development of something new in the career. But in order to get there, we have to go through the winter. And that sort of wintry period is Saturnian, but it is better thought of as a kind of threshold between things than it is as like someone that's there to mess you up. But the threshold is a space that most of us are uncomfortable with because there's a feeling of like limbo, or sometimes as things are changing, there's a feeling of like death or boredom or stagnation or limitation or constraint that goes along with it. Nobody likes that. but it's part of the process. So no, if a new structure, a new way of doing business is coming through, then by all means, listen to the impulse, and do follow when it feels right to do something. And because there's a sense of it's that kairos that we were talking about, like the rightness of the time, the ripeness of the moment. And your heart will tell you that more than just being like, well, Saturn in my second, So anyway, okay, I'm going to call some people on. Miriam, how's it going? Can you hear?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you
Okay.
hear me?
I can, yes. Awesome. Thanks so much for joining.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm going to bring your chart up on the screen. Let me just, okay, what's your date of birth?
11/26/1985, so November 26, 1985.
85. And the time?
2:12 a.m.
And the place?
Whittier, California.
How do you spell that?
It's Whittier.
Whittier, is that what you said?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay. So I have, just to make sure, Libra rising. Does that sound right?
Yep.
Okay, very cool. I'm going to bring your chart up on the screen. By the way, people in the waiting room, if you're going to join, there's some of you that I can't see you on camera. I can't add you to the stage unless I know that you have your camera operating. So just make sure that you're actually, if you're in the green room, just make sure you have your camera turned on. Okay, I'm going to put your chart up on the screen, Miriam, and let's take a look at what's going on. All right, can you see that on the screen?
I can, yeah.
Okay, very cool. Let me get a little better view here. Okay, so what I like to do is just take a look at what's going to be activated, likely by the outer planets, like slow-moving planets in the next year. So the thing that I see right away is you're going to have Uranus come right over the moon, and it's going to go through the opposition to Venus, which you were born with. So you were born with a Moon-Venus opposition across the 2nd and 8th. You just had a bunch of eclipses in those houses. Nodal return, so a pretty poignant period for these planets in these houses. Yeah. And now Uranus is going to go over these planets, and it already has once, I believe, and it'll come back around after its retrograde is over. So this will be like later in the spring, early summer of 2024 that you're experiencing this. But those are really significant transits. Before I even go into it, are you already aware of these transits?
I am, yeah.
What have they made? If you're okay with sharing even just some outlines of what's happened already?
Yeah, I mean, I think there have been some, I would say just a lot of insights when it comes to money and also self-worth, and just really thinking about how sometimes those two are tied together for me. I also, I changed jobs. So I got a significant pay bump. I was working at a very well-known amusement park in Southern California, and I went back to teaching. So nice. I moved here to Palo Alto to take a teaching job. So yeah. And then, cool. Yeah, just I think just really exploring loneliness and connection and what I'm looking for in this next stage of my life as I get close to 40.
Are you currently married or in a relationship, dating, or single?
No, I'm single.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, one thing that comes to my mind right away is just that this transit, because it's going over Venus, it's opposing Venus. Venus is your ascendant ruler. And you have this interesting Mars-Venus mutual reception in your chart. The thing that comes to my mind almost immediately is the potential for the awakening of love. That would be a real theme to watch for here. And so that can come by means of just saying, I find that I'm in just a really busy, active, fun, creative period of exploring the dating world. It can also mean that an unexpected relationship comes in. It could also mean that there are unexpected developments in terms of who you find yourself attracted to. You find yourself falling in love with someone perhaps that is really outside of what you thought you would ever, who you would ever be with or something. So I think that's one real possibility here. Of course, I like what you already said, which was, the moon opposite Venus across these houses can really shake things up when it comes to money, debt, finances. All of those things can experience, I would say, a freeing up. Uranus is going to remove limitations and barriers and create that kind of emancipatory quality. It's like, it's like fresh air. But it does so by oftentimes by kind of like suddenly rattling your cage too, where I imagine that the job shift going from the amusement park to teaching was, it's probably a bit of a shock to the system.
Yes, I will say that once I got this job, I did make a plan to try to pay off my student loans, which is a significant amount. So I have been working on that since I got here. So I'm hoping that I'm just trying to work with the energy as best as I can.
Yeah. And it's funny because I just did horoscopes on Venus opposite Uranus, which is happening today. And one of the things that I noted about the Venus Uranus opposition across the 2nd and 8th for one of my former clients was that they paid off student debt. When you see this as a long-term thing happening in the next year, could there be a loosening of debts? And those debts can be karmic, emotional. They can be very subtle. And the sense of freedom coming in doesn't have to be just like, oh, I paid off the final bill, but more like a series of events that starts to set an event or a series of events that sets in motion the gradual liberation of resources. So
and that makes a lot of sense because I would say that my student loans in particular are actually tied to a previous relationship that was very challenging for me. And so part of me wanting to pay off these debts is more than the money. It's more so the connection that it has to that particular partnership.
Yeah, of course. The other thing that comes to my mind here is Venus opposite the moon will frequently pit the archetypes of the moon versus Venus against one another in one's psyche or psychological reality. For example, one of the classic images of the moon in Taurus would be like the mother archetype, whereas Venus in Scorpio, or just any Venus placement, might be more like the maiden. So you think about like a single young woman versus a married woman or a mom or something, just different images of femininity.
Yeah.
That can have like clash or competition in the psyche, or you can feel like there's extremes pulling in different ways. And sometimes you'll also see like challenges when it comes, because of those tensions, there might be embodiments that are more literal, like competition or, almost like rivalry between mom and daughter, or that mom was somehow condemning of certain parts while exalting of other parts of you, or, just like the freeing up of mother-daughter dynamics can happen, or relationships with other women, or the different aspects of the feminine within yourself going through some kind of harmonization that Uranus makes possible through the freeing up of their tension or their capacity to be experienced only in opposition,
I teach all girls middle school, so
Yeah, that's awesome.
it has been a big year of growth for me. I will say I've taught middle school all girls before, but I would say that this has been probably the biggest growth experience for me.
Yeah,
So,
wow.
thank you.
That's incredible. Thank you so much, Miriam. Thank you so much for coming on. Really appreciate it. I hope this
Thank
was
you
able
so
to give
much.
you some good things to think about.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, we'll see you again later. Bye.
Okay, bye.
Okay, that was a fantastic demonstration. I'm so thankful for Miriam for coming on. And next, I'm going to go to David. Hi, David. You're on mute. Can you hear me?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah, there we go. Okay, perfect. I'm going to
Hey,
get
oh
your
my
birth.
God.
Yeah,
Sorry.
thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for taking me.
What's your date of birth?
08/26/1994.
1994, August 26, 1994. What time?
9:36 a.m.
And the place?
Camden, New Jersey.
So I have you as Libra rising as well. Does that sound right?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. Were you gonna say something?
I was just gonna say, Miriam, we both have like a Scorpio stellium in the 2nd house, and then our South Node and Moon in the 8th house. So I wanted to like have her connect with me or something, and we can like chat about that just to see like if there's any similarities. But
yeah.
back to you.
No, thank you. That's great.
Yeah.
So let's see here. So we're going to look and see what's going on with respect to maybe say the next year ahead here. All right. Well, the thing that comes to my mind right away are the eclipses taking place this year because they're happening in some really important houses. So let me just bring these up. So you're going to have eclipses across your first and seventh house this year. You're in a Saturn return year. That's a big deal as well. Saturn happens to also be the exaltation ruler of your first house. And so there's mutual exaltation between Venus and Saturn in your first and sixth. That's really interesting because during a Saturn return year, while there's also eclipses in the house of Venus, you're going to have a big year with respect to first, seventh house dynamics. There's a lunar eclipse in Libra on March 25th. That'll be your first house, followed by a solar eclipse in Aries April 8th. That'll be your seventh. And then in the fall, there's going to be another one October 2nd in Libra in the first. There'll be a lunar eclipse in Pisces too on the 17th of September, and your Saturn return will be active during that time. So the eclipses during the year are, in other words, activating and participating in your Saturn return in a very dramatic way. And we'll just sort of draw a connection here. So what I would say about that is that this is a year of, when you see solar eclipses in the first and Venus in the first and so forth, it's a year that offers you the ability to become someone slightly different. And that can mean psychological growth and maturity. It can mean a personal or like an identity makeover of some kind, which could be very external, like body, fashion, presentation to the world, but it can also be deeply internal, a shift of values, a shift of identity, a growth psychologically. But how is that happening? It's running through what's happening in relationships. It's running through what's happening around, the house of sex, love, marriage, interpersonal companionship in life, and changes that have to be made in that area are reflecting changes that have to be made in your sense of identity, health, sanity, first house dynamics. So it's a year for you to be thinking very deeply about what kind of changes you want to make in relation to the way you show up in relationships or who you're with or how you love or, those kinds of things. And some really the potential for a very deep kind of coming of age moment because the Saturn return really demarcates the boundary between one phase of life, let's call it youth, and the next phase, which is adulthood. There's a kind of reckoning that can happen karmically around things like health, around identity, and around relationships during a period like this. So you want to be careful that you don't wait until that, it's like you don't want to hit some kind of hard wall because there's a resistance or stubbornness to change things of your own volition. That's important for a Saturn return like this. But also know that, there's a sense of, being rewarded for hard work done when it comes to changing things about yourself and the way you do or are in relationships with other people, that, if you make those changes, it's very possible for something about your relationships and about your self-esteem and self-worth to really be altered in a very beneficial way.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, what comes to mind, I guess, would be, I'm definitely undergoing like a massive identity shift. Past 10 years, I've kind of been like on the fence with like the woo-woo and spirituality, but like the past month, of course, Scorpio season, I just like had all these revelations and went deeper with astrology and just had a lot of like insight and basically I'm like 110% in with like all of the woo-woo. So that's kind of like bringing new people into my life. And I guess moving forward, I'll be having new, like maybe karmic relationships with this new identity. That's kind of what that's what I'm gathering based on what you said.
Yeah, for sure. Are you in a relationship at the moment, dating, single? What's your relational status?
I'm single. Yeah, single but hopeless, romantic. I'm in like a situationship, but
I love that's a great description.
yeah, but more like it's like intimate friends with this person, but
Mhm.
definitely have like a burning desire for like a very deep like soul, especially with this new insight of like my spiritual gifts and stuff. I'm like, I want someone that's gonna like really complement that and like be like
Mm.
my power couple type thing. So
Yeah.
uh,
Well, I would watch in particular for the April 8th eclipse, which is happening while there's a Mercury retrograde in your seventh house of relationships. A solar eclipse in that house is a significant kind of opening or a seed, you could say, that's being planted in the realm of relationships,
wow.
and a call to try something new, perhaps, or something new kind of coming in. And it wouldn't necessarily happen on that day of the April 8th eclipse, but from that day and say the next 3 or 4 months moving forward, as the kind of the seed being planted starts to gestate and develop, right? So I love that for you. I like that, you've got Pluto moving into the fifth house. Among other things, that place was called the Joy of Venus in the house of romance. So yeah, I think that there's a lot of promise here for your Saturn return having to do with an opportunity to really become someone different and new, as new things are also being grown in the realm of relationships. That's the general outline of what I'm seeing here for you, David.
Okay, thank you so much. Received. Yeah, I may be joining your Hellenistic course. Is it too late to join the November cohort? Oh, there
No,
was a
we can.
month in.
You have to catch up with a few classes. We can certainly get you in. You just email info@nightlightastrology.com and we can figure it out.
Okay, cool. I already did that, so I will see you there. Thank you.
Okay, awesome. Thanks so much for coming
Bye-bye.
on, David. Bye. Awesome. That was really nice to visit with David. I'm going to take on one more, and then I have to go. Bree, how's it going?
Good, thank you.
Yeah. Thanks for joining. I'm going to get your birth data. Bree, what is your date of birth?
It is 10/8/82.
October 8th, 1982. Did I hear that right?
Yes,
And the time?
it was 4:19 p.m.
And the city and state?
Fontana, California.
How do I spell that?
Fontana.
Okay, got it. And so I have you as Aquarius rising. Does that sound right?
That's correct.
Okay, cool. Let's put your chart up on the screen and see what we've got. Okay, can you see the chart on the screen?
Yes, thank you.
All right, awesome. Wow, so such a huge year with eclipses in the ninth house for you. That comes to mind right away. That's a very powerful signature right away of this being a year in which the philosophical, religious, educational dimensions of life are just really important. There's something really special that's growing or developing there. Does that resonate?
Very much. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I find that people go back to school, or they find a teacher or subject that they love studying, or there's religious or spiritual growth, or new practices or habits are kind of like appearing. I love that house because of how much it expands the mind and heart, and offers us and especially for someone who's born with such a stellium there, that space of spirituality and the kind of development of a philosophical and spiritual compass in life is so important for people with big stelliums in that house. So I can only imagine that this year must be really, it must be really hitting a sweet spot.
Yes. Trying, but I hope in the end, sweet. Yes.
Is there any developments you could tell us about that match with any of those themes?
Okay, so how to nutshell, but I went through some really extreme trauma. Grew up in the church my whole life, and was a part of a congregation, and then I don't even know how to say it, just ended up having a dream, having it come to pass, and then had like a day in court in church, and I was accused of this dream could, like, if it's coming to pass, can't be from God. It has to be witchcraft or the occult or whatever. And it just took me down, like, for the last year and a half, I've just felt like my faith was just derailed and loss of just direction. And I guess the areas that I've always been taught all my life, you can't go there. This is the only truth. We can't look anywhere else. What ended up happening is I felt like, okay, what is it that they're saying I can't look at? And coming across your channel has been one of the biggest eye openers for me in my life. And it's honestly, it's like aligning up. And all I can say is I felt like it makes sense now. I feel like I've always been a spiritual person. I was just trapped in a religious paradigm. So,
I mean, yeah, when you
yeah.
have such a heavy concentration of planets in the ninth, Pluto in the ninth, excuse me, the idea that the life path will happen along lines of spiritual and philosophical transformation is, that's just huge. And clearly
Yeah.
that's what you've been through. I have to say, there's so many features of your natal chart that, immediately I'm like, oh, look at this piece or that piece in connection to your story. Oh, look, the big arrow came out. Just, you never know when it's going to come. So yeah, the Mercury Moon square is really fascinating because the Mercury Moon square is, Moon's a little bit afflicted in the 6th house, although it's in its own domicile, which is great. And Mercury is retrograde and just coming out as the morning star from under the beams of the sun when you were born. The square with the 2 suggests that there is some need for the integration of bodily, instinctual, and intuitive wisdom alongside of intellectual and spiritual or philosophical, say, like mental dogma or doctrines. As someone I was born with Mercury opposed the moon across the 3rd and the 9th. That was a big part of my own religious journey coming from a church. Fortunately, I was really raised in a church that was very open-minded, and my father was a minister who was, generally speaking, very broad-minded. So I didn't have quite the same intense, like, I didn't have to stand trial for leaving the church.
Yes.
In fact, in many ways, my family has always encouraged my exploration. But one thing that is still hard coming out of an institutional religious upbringing is, you're given so much guidance and support and structure, and then there comes this time where you have to learn how to trust your own personal connection with the divine to be guiding you. And the point that I would make is that journey is absolutely within the bounds of what I think God or divinity itself designs for us.
Yes.
There are so many examples throughout history of people who have had intimate relationships with the divine without, while not necessarily staying close within the confines of doctrines or dogmas. And a lot of people, we call that like spiritual, but not religious. I read a book recently this past year that I loved, that was called Religious, but Not Religious. And I would highly recommend you check out that book, because I think for people who come from a religious background, I think there's something about the whole spiritual but not religious thing that may not quite fit, where you need some commitments. If you're coming from a background that had a lot of structure, a kind of completely open, make it up as you go, that there may be a little bit more than that that's necessary. For example, I find that the language of astrology, and it's logos, it's intelligence as a system, its coherence and its structure, give me something that my psyche really needs. And so, there are different ways of looking at what religion is or isn't or whatever. But for your chart, one of the things that comes to my mind is just the development of intuition. But with all that Libra energy in the 9th, you're still going to need eloquent, beautiful, well-designed structures to participate in. And that could be any number of disciplines that maybe are a better match for you than the church community was. But the eloquence and beauty of like a beautifully architecturally, designed system is still probably important for Libra in the 9th.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, the biggest transit that I would see for you would be Pluto's entrance into your 1st house, moving into a giant arrow trine with Mercury in the 9th. This is, to me, really profound, because in this year, what's going to happen is Pluto's going to enter your 1st, where it starts to demand that the ideas by means of which you locate and identify yourself, which are hugely important for Aquarius rising folk, that they be transformed, that they shift, that they change. And they're changing in this nice, harmonious, fluid trine with the morning star Mercury in the 9th house in Libra. To me, that suggests the cultivation and development of more knowledge, more study. This is really like a year of intellectual and spiritual renaissance, where very powerful, interesting new paradigms, whether that's astrology or something else, are going to be basically asking for incorporation and expression. The morning star moves Mercury from a place of invisibility to moving into a sort of a space of proclamation that's very individualistic. Mercury as the morning star says, this is my idea. This is what I am. And it sort of blasts it out like a trumpet. It's very yang. Well, a young Mercury in Libra will still be very graceful and balanced. I mean, you're not going to become some kind of angry prophet on a mountain screaming or anything, but you're going to find some way in which you need to start announcing a change within yourself spiritually and intellectually. And the Pluto in Aquarius will do a lot of work over a long period of time, hitting a lot of different planets, all in your 9th house. You know, it'll eventually hit Jupiter in your 10th house, which is also is part of that wiring of, like, let's say, if you want to define what you were a part of, let's say at its worst as like a cult, right? Jupiter in Scorpio will, you know, slowly Pluto to Jupiter will say, you know, that deep sense of belonging to a community that has a set of beliefs and practices is still a valuable part of your life, but Pluto is going to change what that looks like for you. And it's doing so very slowly and gradually as you take in this kind of, initially, this sort of new morning star Mercury in the 9th kind of learning.
Yeah. Thank you. That is completely spot on. Yeah.
Good. Yeah, I'm glad. It's really such an exciting story. I always get a little excited when I hear someone who has a story that has some similarities, you know, so. Yes.
Well, and I've listened for, you know, probably 6-7 months ago, I discovered you, and it's been, like I said in the email, just absolutely healing for me. And I'm a mom of 7 kids. And so just now I've been like taking their charts and looking at it a little bit, and it's fascinating to me to really see it. And it's beautiful. And it honestly, it's helped save a lot of those hopeless parts of me in this time, is just to see that that divinity is there. And I love that you said something the other day. It was like that it's untampered with. And I think that's beautiful. So yeah, thank you. This is totally spot on and very validating, and I appreciate it so much.
Yeah, Bree, so glad we could help you. And, you know, I would just tell anyone listening who's like working into new territory spiritually, and there's maybe a past of being told that there's something wrong or bad with that. This is just remember that as long as you go with a humble heart and asking for divine guidance and protection as you go, I think that the divine, however we want to name that or whatever word we use for it, is imaginative enough, loving enough, and accepting enough to say, you know what? I know that people have to learn by, what is the, there was an acronym that I heard. It was an acronym, and it said something, it was like love, and it was learning through voluntary, I don't remember, it was something. I'm going to forget it now. But the idea was just that, like, I don't think the divine wants to coerce us. I think that our choices and our way of learning and our questions and our process, as long as we remain sort of humble and open-minded, is honored and protected. So I would just send you with that. If there's any benediction in that I hope that it helps.
Great. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Well, take it easy, Bree. Thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you.
Bye. All right. Well, you guys, thank you so much for listening today. I hope that this was valuable for you guys. I hope it was a good learning experience to see some charts read, to hear some cool conversations about astrology, to try to answer your questions. There are a few people that I wasn't able to get to, and a huge list of people that I wasn't able to get to in the inbox as well. I just can't thank you guys enough for all the support that you've given us through the Kickstarter. One last call to donate if you have not already. You can go to nightlightastrology.com, and you can find us on the website. You can hit the website and click on the link to the Kickstarter. It'll take you over there. You can donate, pledge, come study with us, pick up a class pass. They are greatly discounted through the Kickstarter until New Year's Eve. We have a whole bunch of, we need a huge rise of support here at the end to get to our 1,777 backer goal. Can't do it without you guys. And thank you so much to the 714 people, as I have right now, that have already donated. We really appreciate it. I hope you guys will have a nice rest of your day, and we will hopefully see you guys again soon for another live stream. Take it easy, everyone. Bye.